Back for the fifth episode of how to build a habit tracker. So today I'll go over the solution on how to manage to reuse that same button multiple times. I know you might have just created this, moved inside of it, and changed the string with the properties here for this one. However, there's a better ways to do it, and it's by building some components that's going to be reusable. Since the button has a lot of line of code here, what we want to do is we want to delete it. So we'll basically So you want to copy, cut it, and inside the habit list, we'll create a new file, which is going to be another Swift UI view. And for this, we'll call it habit, habit button view. And inside of the text here, we'll paste this into it. So we have our button that is here. You will see our button is currently not here anymore. However, we can make a reference to it by calling it inside of our loop. And here we go. We have that button that appears 3 times. The reason why it appears 3 times is because we have 3 habits that was predetermined here. You can see that our data is still not reflecting of our developer preview mock data, which we'll go and fix it right now. And before it gets too messy in here, I'll just restructure this a little bit more. So I'll just move that into a models file. This one, I'm going to move it. Move selection inside a view models folder. And this one here, I'm going to move it inside a views folder, as well as this one here. And inside of our views model, I want to create a new file as well, which is going to be a Swift file. We don't want to create the UI, we want to create the back logic for the button. And we'll create it a habit button view model. Perfect. We can see here it still has an issue. I don't know if it's just my computer or if it's normal, but let me restart this. I am not sure if it's part of the latest update. I feel like I never had that much of an issue before. And for our button, the way we want to create it, so the button here, we will want to pass the habit so we can display what the values are. So in the button view here, we'll basically create a property habit, and we're going to pass the habit that is being enumerated. Now it's going to create an error because we don't have that habit property for that button. But if we go into button view, we'll create some spacing here and we'll create an init. And for our init, we want to init the button where it's going to require a habit to be passed in. And you can see I assign it as a type of habit, and it's going to throw another error, which is in our preview. Basically, the preview is going to call our structure view here. If you require a value, it's going to ask you to have a value. So this is where our developer preview comes in handy again. Developer preview dot habit, and we'll just pass in the first one. Oh, I'm missing the label. And so we have our habit here. The button is back. The habit is not passed in yet. We will work a little bit more in details on how to do it. Basically, you could create a var in here, work with that same variables that's going to be able to populate everything. However, like mentioned before, I like to keep the logic separated from the UI. So for the button, I will go ahead and create a class, which is going to be the name of the model view. And it's the same as earlier. So it's going to be an observable object. And inside of it, what we want to get is our published variable that's going to be our habit. We want the UI to be using that. We will want to init this to contain the habit that we're passing in. And so the self.habit will be equal to habit that's being passed in. So this health, the object habit, which is the self habit, and it's going to be passed in here. And I will wait for the rest here actually. So for our button here now, what we want to create is going to be to link the view like we did earlier for the habit list view. So we'll create a observable observed object, and our observed object is going to be our view model. So var view model, and we will assign it a habit view habit button view model. You'll see here I am not assigning it yet. I'm not I'm not creating that object yet. The reason for is that whenever I'm in it, I'm going to do the init. I'm going to assign the model with the habit value that was passed in. So the habit button view model, and habit is going to be our habit here. So we're passing in the habit that was passed in our view here. That's a lot of habit everywhere being passed. I know it can be confusing. However, it's going to be easier later on to be working with your model if you do that this way. You'll see here for our text, what we basically can do here is basically the view model dot habit, and we can do dot emoji. Earlier, like I mentioned as well, at the end of the previous video, I went inside our developer preview and I assigned an emoji to each one of them. So this is going to be assigned here. For the title, we're going to go ahead and use I'll just copy this so it's going to be a little quicker. And use title. For the description, it's going to be the habit.description. And for the 1 day streak, here, you remember the value in our model is only an integer. If I want to keep the text, a good way to do that, we can do a backslash, open parentheses, and you can enter code in there. So I'm going to enter the value that I actually want to keep. And basically I get assigned 0 day, which is currently our value in our developer preview. Now let's go back to our habit list view and let's see if everything works. So we can see we have our meditation, workout, social, and each one of them works and we can still scroll and all. Now there's an awkward layout here for the description. I really don't like that it's centered. To fix this in our habit list view, no, it's actually in our button. Sorry for that. In the description, we will go ahead and change a multi-line text alignment to leading. And when we go back to habit list, we can see that our text is all moved to the leading. If somehow you wanted to have it trailing or centered, you can always keep it centered or trailing, but I like it at the beginning. So we can see the vegetation, description, and our streak. So we're getting closer to having a proper button working. Now we want to have a logic where we don't see that check mark if it's not done for the day, and if it's done for the day, we want to see that check mark. And so to implement this, we'll go back to our view model and we'll create a function. So the function, we'll call it habit clicked. Or you can call it button click, since it's our only button. You know what? I'll actually call it button click. Button habit click. There we go. And we'll go ahead, and what we want to do, I don't have a property, right? I think I forgot a property for our model. So we're going to go back to model, actually habit, and we will want to add another property, which is going to be called is done, which is going to be a boolean. So it's going to be basically a true or false. And by default, this value will be set to false. So whenever you create a new habit, you don't want the habit to be already selected. So it's going to be set to false by default. So here, we'll go ahead and click to the habit and look at is done and toggle when we click on it. That means that it's going to turn to true or false. If it's going to turn to the opposite, like a switch. A light switch. And what we need to do is when we click and we did the exercise, it's going to basically start at false and it's going to go to true. That means that when it's true, we want to increase the streak. So the habit is done. When it is done, we want to habit dot streak. We want to add 1 to it. The other option basically is if that didn't, if the person clicked on it, but he clicked by mistake and he unclick it, we want to subtract 1 so we don't keep just adding to it. Actually, there we go. And in our habit button view, in the button action, we will want to add that view model dot the function that we just created. And what it will do is if we click on it, you can see it changed the streak. Now that is done for the toggle for the button, this is still showing all the time. What we want to do is at the image here, we want to show it only if the view model dot habit dot is done is equal to true. So we'll pass in the image. So now it's false. If we click, you can see it appear. So we have the days streak that is changing and the check mark that is changing. So now let's go back to the list. Let's test this a little bit more. Meditation is done, workout is done, and social is done. Fantastic, I did all my things. Oh, I did a mistake. I just did the gym. So everything works here. We went through how to implement a logic for the buttons to be able to have personalized buttons. One thing that I might be missing left, I don't like that it's very one after the other. We'll just maybe create a bit of spacing. So the lazy V stack is the same as a regular V stack. You can add some spacing into it between. That kind of looks good, I think. Should I increase it a little bit? Maybe a little. I think 20 is better. So I have my buttons and I have the spacing, which looks fantastic to me. So if there's any question, don't hesitate to comment down below. If you like that video, please leave a thumbs up or tell me what you would like to see in the next video. And Don't forget to subscribe if you want to follow this series along. See you in the next video. Have a good day.